Welcome to Hebrews Lesson 3. Here we are at chapter 12, and we finished doing chapter 11. What was chapter 11 about?
Faith.
Faith.
Faith. Absolutely, faith. So we don't want to forget about chapter 11 because that's going to tie right into chapter 12. Remember, we can never separate one chapter from another. So we're starting with chapter 11, just that review of what was the main point of it was faith, but what about faith? If we look at verse 1 of chapter 12, it says, now, whoops, I'm looking at 11, sorry. Therefore, so right away, you have to go back to chapter 11, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, so who are the cloud of witnesses?
That's all the people in chapter 11.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all the people in chapter 11. What do we know about those people and their faith?
They clung to their faith even though they didn't actually get to see the results of their faith. That was to come later.
Right. When you say they clung to their faith, what are you talking about? What was happening with them?
Well, some were facing persecution.
Yeah.
And others were being challenged to go back to the old covenant.
And it was by faith that they were able to do all the things they did.
Yeah.
They were mocked and beaten, flogged.
Even to the point of death, some were sawn into, put to death with the sword.
And it was because of their faith they were able to do miracles or see miracles happening around them.
So that's our great cloud of witnesses. And it doesn't sound like it was very pleasant for most of them. Challenges all along the way. But they, like Dave said, they clung on to their faith because there was something better, right? Something better. There was nothing that was worth giving up their faith for. So if we look at chapter 12, verse 1, this lesson was a lot about word studies, correct? Word studies. Okay. So when you do a word study, what you do with that definition is you take it right back to the text and make it broaden your understanding of the text. So you learn what that word really means. You look at a word and you say, oh, I know what that means. When you look it up and you get a more solid definition, and then you take it right back to the text, and it just kind of expands our understanding of that text. That's the whole point of doing word studies. And so we're going to be doing some of that today because of those word studies that you did to just help us walk through and make this text a little bit deeper for us. So chapter 12, verse 1, the great cloud of witnesses. So we talked about who they are. What does it mean, witness? What does it mean to be a witness?
Well, one of the definitions was martyrs, like that they bears witness by his or her death.
Okay, bears witness by his or her death. Okay. And of course, that would be a martyr for what cause? They would be witnessing. Why did they die? For what cause?
Cause of Christ.
What other definitions did you see about what does it mean to be a witness?
You truly see something and can testify to it.
Okay. Yeah. Right. I mean, that stands true for us today, right? If you end up going to court and you are a witness for something, you're saying, I saw this with my own eyes and I raised my right hand and I swear that this is the truth. Okay. So these people, all these people in chapter 11, they were witnesses. So what does it say about them? What were they witnesses of?
Many of them died for their faith. They
Mhm.
testified to their faith,
Yeah.
and they
Their faith.
died.
Right. So their faith in Jesus Christ. So they were witnesses of that, of their belief in Jesus Christ was what they're testifying to. Okay, so they are our examples. All of those people in chapter 11 are our examples. They're testifying to us about the truth of faith in Jesus Christ. So now that's that cloud of witnesses. They are saying, I know this is true. I raise my right hand and I say, this is true. And this is what I was willing to die for.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Obviously, Abraham and Noah were slightly before Jesus Christ was manifested on earth. How does that say they were testifying to faith in him? I thought they were testifying to their faith in God.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. It would be early in those days, faith in God. And then later, when Jesus came, it would be faith in him. So like Abraham is God, right? All of those are faith in God, going all the way through,
Moses,
yeah, Moses,
Rahab.
yeah, and all the Old Testament.
Mhm. In verse 32, all the people listed.
Right. Right. So all of them, but so let's talk about then, so they did not see what was promised to them. Because in verse 40, they were commended for their faith. They received God's approval for their faith in him. And it says, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they could not be made perfect. So they did not see the promises. The promises would be Jesus coming. So this, and again, all of Hebrews is this Old Testament versus Old Covenant versus New Covenant. So their faith was you're right, Mark, their faith was in God. And then going forward for us, it's faith. Their faith was in the promise. Okay, the promise, which never was fulfilled for them, but now it's fulfilled in Christ. So now we are recipients of that promise, faith in salvation through Jesus Christ. Okay, does that help? Does that answer your question? Good. Okay, great. So, where was I? Okay, so we want to, says, let us, the cloud of witnesses, okay, they did it. They endured whatever, right to death because of their faith in God. Now, what's the first exhortation in verse 1? What does it say we are to do then?
Lay aside every encumbrance.
Okay. Lay aside every encumbrance.
And sin,
Yeah. And sin, and then run
endurance.
with endurance. Okay. The race that is set before us. What is the race that we are running? Let's talk about that first. What is the race we are running?
The Christian life.
Hmm?
a Christian
Yeah.
race, run, life, walk.
Okay, we talked a little bit about this last week.
Oh,
So when does our race begin?
With salvation.
Yes. So we have the cross. He died once for all time. So the moment that we accept that, that is our moment of faith and our moment of salvation, and then we start running. What are we running to?
The goal is heaven.
Yes, yes, yes. So we talked last week about the cross and heaven and how we live by faith in between. Okay. So we are running that race from salvation to heaven, to our eternal reward. That's the race. So how do we run? What does it say here? How do we run?
With endurance.
With endurance, yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that
Endurance.
word endurance and endure in those first few verses?
Mhm.
Endure, endurance, endure. So the race is going to take endurance. What about the people in chapter 11? Did they endure?
Yes.
Great deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the endurance is for everybody who is running that race, it takes endurance. How do you make it, I don't want to say easier, but what does it say about laying aside every what?
every weight or
Every
Every
weight.
sin.
Okay. Anything that encumbers you, okay, and the sin. Say, so what does it mean? What does the word weight mean?
A burden.
The things that will trip us up.
Okay, yes. So if you're going to run, you've got to lay aside anything that is going to trip you up or slow you down.
Mhm.
What does sin mean?
Anything that's not of God.
So what's the difference? What's the difference between the weight? You lay aside every weight and every sin. What's the difference between the weight and the sin?
I would say some of it would be an internal worry. We worry about things that are not necessarily sinful, but our eyes are taken off of Jesus when we begin to worry about our children, finances, or um, some other area, our parents as they're growing older. And so when we take our eyes off of Jesus, we're taking our eyes off of our promise. He can help us with all those worries, quote unquote.
Yeah,
He does.
those are
help
good.
all
Yeah,
those worries.
those are good examples. All of those things that would hinder us from just running straight toward the goal, that would slow us down, that would cause us to maybe stumble, to like Linda said, take our eyes off of Jesus. So how is that different from sin?
well, that's anything that separates us from God, isn't it? Because he hates sin.
And sin is usually, to me, it seems like it's usually something we choose to do.
Yeah, but we choose to worry. That has been one of my struggles over the years. Is worrying is not of God. It's like fear is not of God, and it really takes control not to begin to worry about something that somebody else has said to me or whatever, and in a way that can allow sin in. It can be. It only takes a pinhole to allow something in that is not of God, and then that just begins to tear away. So, for me, one of the things is is worry. And so I have to not do that. I have to go back and seek God's help not to do that, and to give it to Him, and to trust Him that it's all going to be okay.
Okay, very good
Anything
example.
that distracts us.
Right, right. So you lay it aside. It says lay aside every weight, every sin.
The place I looked up sin, it said, it directed me to Ephesians 4:22, and it said, sin is the old self, the old manner of life, corrupted through deceitful desires. So it's your old self, the old way you did things.
I ended up kind of in down a rabbit hole looking at the difference of these two things.
Mhm.
And what really caught me was that it said where I ended up is that anything like the weight is anything that slows us down, like you were saying, but that our sin is what can literally stop our race. So it also, like, I was also looking at like that weighting, that the weight isn't, it's not sin. It's morally neutral, but it's spiritually restrictive. So it's what just pulls us back. It's not necessarily what stops us. That's sin.
I love that. I love that explanation.
I wonder if the author, by talking about weight, was thinking of the weight of trying to keep the law that these Jewish Christians might be tempted to do.
Right. Yeah, keeping the law. Again, he's trying to get them to understand that the law is useless now. Move to the new covenant. Don't keep holding on to that law. That could definitely be the weight that would be holding them back. So run with endurance. Run with endurance the race set before us. Any of you ever been a runner? Yeah, live. Yeah. How do you look at this as a runner? What does it take to endure?
It takes practice, training.
Mhm.
The stamina.
Mhm.
Your eyes focused on the finish line.
Mhm.
Okay.
And sometimes working through pain or discomfort.
Mhm. Yeah.
Making
Mhm.
sacrifices and
Yeah.
giving up things that donuts or whatever.
Mhm. And putting on the right clothes. Like I thought of that with the weight. I tend to, if I'm running a race, I'm picking my outfit to be as light as possible, as free to move as possible, so that kind of corresponds to the weight idea.
Mhm.
Sure it does.
Having the right shoes
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
for mountains or whatever. Having the right shoes, especially if it's
It's
if
crucial.
it's still an icy season, you have to have your shoes well equipped for taking that mountain.
Mhm.
Yeah. If you can picture, I mean, he's given us word pictures about running a race and the endurance and keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus. This is a marathon. Okay? This is a marathon that we're running.
It is.
So sometimes, you can't actually see the finish line. Blythe, could you always see the finish line?
No, you can't always see it, but you do have mile markers
Okay.
along the way that indicate how much further you have to go.
Okay. So that's helpful.
Mhm. The other thing is keeping a good crowd around you that you can feed off of. And so that would be important in our Christian race, to keep the crowd of the right people around us to encourage us and motivate us. And I run better in a race with a bunch of other people than I do by myself out on the lakefront.
So do we have a crowd of people around us running our race?
Yes.
Yes.
Who are they?
There's a little crowd right here.
Yep.
We have
And we have-
family.
Mhm.
We have
Church.
family around us who keep
Mhm.
encouraging and pushing.
Yep.
Then you've got the great cloud of witnesses.
Right. The great cloud of witnesses in chapter 11. So the cloud, our cloud goes way back to Abel.
Yeah.
So we have that the witnesses, we have those examples all throughout scripture. And then in this day, in the present age, we have the people around us. And then we too we are help for them. So we are to support each other in that race. So we're in a marathon. He says, run with endurance the race set before you, looking to Jesus. And what do we learn about Jesus there in verse 2?
Oh, the founder and perfecter of our faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we understand the definitions of those two words, and helps us to understand better this text about who Jesus is in this race?
I actually found this one really interesting, because one of the definitions I found was author, and and then it said the one who takes precedence in faith and thus is the perfect example of it. So Jesus is the author. He's the person who provided the very first occasion of faith. He's the leader of all others who tread that path of faith.
And then how do we finish that up with perfecter?
Well, perfect quite often really is a synonym for complete. It's a complete example of what it is we want to emulate. He shows that he is what we should have faith in, and therefore he's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it too as an ongoing verb. He didn't perfect our faith. He's perfecting our faith. It's a continuum.
As we go.
Yeah.
He cleans us up and helps us to grow to maturity.
Which is exactly what the author of Hebrews has been telling these people that they need to do to grow, right?
Yeah.
So looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. Here's the thing I loved. It says, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. I've just never thought about joy in this whole idea of enduring the cross. But what do we see in that? The joy set before him.
The eternity, after the cross, the resurrection.
Right.
Joy wasn't the cross part of it. It's what was beyond.
Right. Beyond.
What it caused, what happened as a result of it.
Right. Because where does it say he is now?
The right hand.
Yeah.
Right hand.
At the right hand. So there's the victory. There's the victory. There's the finish line. And that was the joy set before him. We have joy set before us. We have that finish line. So for the joy set before us, we endure. We endure. Okay. What does it talk about? In enduring, he's the example of endurance. in verse 2, still in verse 2, it says he endured the cross, despising the shame. Where is it talked about? I forget where it talks about. Oh, here in verse 3, consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself. So consider him. What did he do? He endured
the cross for us.
Right. And all the abuse and all the mocking and all of that humility. He endured that from the people who were fighting against his system and saying, because he said he was God, then they crucified him. So consider him. When you are in a situation of enduring in your faith, consider Jesus. He's the example.
And I think sometimes we look at that example and we say, well, that was Jesus and he knew what was going to happen. But I'm not so sure. He knew he had like all these folks in Hebrews 11, he had faith in God the Father, but he was truly a man like I am.
Mm-hmm.
And how much he knew in advance of what the ultimate outcome was going to be, I don't know. I can't tell you that. All I know is he chose to be faithful and to do what he had to do.
There were times when he spoke to. Well, I'm sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
When he spoke to the disciples several times, he said the prophecies must all be fulfilled and the Son of Man must suffer. So he had a very good idea, if not the details, at least the concept. Because he was telling the disciples, this is what must happen.
And you can't go where I'm going.
And still in the garden, when he prayed, he said, take this away from me, if possible. So very, very difficult. But
I think my point was not, just to speak back to Mark's point, I don't think my point was he didn't realize what a terrible thing was going to happen. But I'm not sure how much he knew beyond.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he knew it all. Maybe we say in the Salvation Army that he's truly and properly God and truly and properly man. So maybe he knew it all. I don't know. But what I do know is that he was faithful, and he joins that great cloud of witnesses that cheer us on.
Yeah, he endured. Whether he knew it all or he didn't know it all, he endured.
Right.
Whatever came his way, he finished it, and that was the joy set before him, and now he sits at the right hand of God. So when you are running your race and you are having to endure things, he says, consider Jesus. That's the example. Consider him so that, see verse 3, so that when you consider what he did, the result is that you would not grow weary and faint-hearted. So pointing again to all these examples of endurance, if they did it, if the people in chapter 11 did it, and Jesus did it, we can do it. We can endure. In verse 4, it says, in your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. You have not yet been put in that situation. He did. The people in chapter 11 did. But if it comes to that, then you endure. You endure.
And many people around the world are doing that now.
Mm-hmm. Right. So again, it's like, what would it take for you to give up your faith?
That's a very tough question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why we have all these examples. Because if you give it up, then you don't have that. You're not going to receive that promise that's set before us of eternal light. So Something to think about. He says, you don't want to grow weary. You don't want to grow faint-hearted. Just keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, who made it all the way to the end for us. Keep your eyes fixed on the finish line. He's the example. People in chapter 11 are the examples. We have people all around us these days who are examples of running the race, finishing it. In the next few verses, what's the subject that we see now in 5 through 10, 11? 5 through 11. Discipline.
Yeah.
Right, discipline. See, you see that key word, discipline, 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 discipline. We are going to do a more in-depth study on this part of it next week on discipline. But what does discipline have to do with enduring while you are running a race?
God says that, well, not God says, but it says in the Bible here that God will discipline us to help us become more Christ-like.
Yeah.
And that's just a part of the sanctification process and making us better tools to do His will.
What else do you see about the discipline?
Discipline is a correction to help us when we start to get off of our race, off of course, to get back onto the race at hand. So
Right.
it can seem like a bad thing, but God's doing it for our good.
It shows how much he loves us when he disciplines.
And what's the example that he gives along those same lines?
If you don't are left without discipline, then you might not actually be a child of God, like illegitimate, it says.
He punishes each one that he accepts as his child.
Are you wanting the example in verse 6, Linda?
Yeah.
The Lord,
Look at verse 7.
yeah, it is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left, no, that's 8. Sorry, what did 8?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about that example of an earthly father. We have some fathers here on screen. Have you ever disciplined your kids? Yes. Why? Why?
To help raise them up in the way you wish they should go.
Right. You're training them. And why do you care?
Because I love them.
Exactly. So, see, we can understand that earthly example. He uses that earthly example. What father does not discipline his child because he loves him and wants him to do the right thing? So, of course, if we are children of God, he's going to discipline us. And the result of that discipline is
Verse 10,
verse 10.
that we may share his holiness.
So you see that word "that" in verse 10? That's one of those terms of conclusion or result. Why he disciplines us. Why? So that we will share in his holiness. Verse 11, for the moment, I think Betty said this, it doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem good. It's not pleasant. But later, what does it yield?
Fruit of righteousness.
Yeah. fruit of righteousness. So there's the result. Yeah, in the moment, it's not good. Your kids, when you discipline them, they were probably not happy. But the result of that would be better behavior, being on the right track. So discipline is a good thing. It's a good thing. And it's necessary for us to have discipline in order to run the race.
Kind of a connotation of the word discipline seems like it isn't a good thing, but really discipline comes from the word to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how disciples are students, because they're being taught.
Exactly. See, and that's the difference between just what we understand as discipline, just from our what's the word I'm looking for? Just our understanding of the word discipline from our culture. It seems negative, but it's not. It's not negative. It's a good thing. And when you look at the definition of discipline, then it helps us understand that it is a good thing. It's teaching, it's training. So because it's a good thing, we should look at it as a good thing because it comes from God, and because it shows that he loves us. It shows that we are his children. And so it's going to have a good outcome to help us run that race. So what does it say? Because discipline is a good thing, what does verse 12 say?
Well, it starts a whole list of actual practical advice. Lift your hands, strengthen your weak knees, make straight paths for your feet. Then strive for peace with everyone and for holiness.
Mm-hmm.
I numbered them, Linda.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
There's 9.
All right. So Blythe, when you're running a race, do you run with drooping hands and weak knees?
Yeah, no, I try not to.
Yeah, maybe at the end.
Yeah, I mean, your posture is everything when you're running. There are ways to move your hands to help with the motion, the movement. And weak knees are horrible to have when you're trying to run a race. Yeah.
So I looked at that as like him saying, okay, discipline is a good thing, so therefore just stand up straight and run and run. Yeah, 12 through 17 is that list that Blythe is talking about, things that we should do because we are in this race. And again, we'll look at some of those next week, but what do you see in that group that would help us to understand this race that we're running? Most of these things that Blythe was talking about are relationships with other people. Was somebody trying to say something? Okay. What's the example that he gives in verse 16?
Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal.
Mm-hmm. We're also going to look at Esau next week. We're going to do some cross-referencing about that to help us understand that better. But see to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God and no root of bitterness grows up. We're all in this race together. So the peace, strive for peace with everyone. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Don't let a root of bitterness grow up. Help each other along the way.
Did anybody watch the news? I think it was NBC News last night where they showed the end of the Boston Marathon. And there was that kid that kept trying to stand up and his knees were too weak. He kept sliding back down. And then it made me cry to watch it. But this one guy came and pulled him up, helped him up. And then another guy came next to him. And they both just put their arms around him and carried him to the finish line. It was amazing. It was amazing. And they interviewed one of the guys, and he said, everybody should do this because we are all part of this together. And it's not just one person crossing that line, it's all of us.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh. I'm feeling like crying right now. It's like, but that's the picture. That's the picture of what he's trying to say here in Hebrews. That's the picture. We all have to get across the finish line. I love that. I wish I had a clip of that to show, but you could probably see it on YouTube, I bet.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on
Right.
YouTube somewhere, but it was on NBC Nightly News. So if you have Peacock, it's probably on demand.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great picture.
And it was
Yeah,
kept-
that explains.
Oh, sorry. It was amazing
Go
to
ahead.
see. I saw that too, Sherry. And even before those two guys came and helped him, it was encouraging to hear the crowd, those behind the lines that were by him that kept trying to encourage him. And I think he even said afterwards that that's what helped him to continue to try to get up on his own until the others actually physically helped him. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that could not be a better picture of these verses. Could not. So just keep that in mind, while we run this race. We got to help each other get there. It says, yes, it says, see to it that no one fails. See to it that no one fails. And that's exactly what they did.
We have to remember chapter 10, verse 25, that says we should not forsake assembling together but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day drawing near.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Mary, for connecting that back to chapter 10. Verses 18 through 29, again, we're going to look at those verses in a couple lessons from now. We're going to be in chapter 12 for 3 weeks. But just generally speaking, what is the warning that he gives us in those verses 10 through 29? It's actually found in verse 25, if you want to look at that. See that you do not refuse him who is speaking. Where did we see that before in this study about who is speaking?
God is speaking to us through Christ.
Way back in chapter 1. Way back. And remember, this was weeks and weeks ago. But he talked about how God spoke through the prophets.
Through the prophets.
Yeah.
Right. And now he speaks through Jesus. So he says, don't refuse him who is speaking. And what's the example that he's giving us in 18 through 29? A couple of examples here. What's he comparing? It's okay if you don't see it, because we're going to be looking at that in 2 weeks.
I think he seems to be comparing Mount Sinai with Mount Zion.
Yes. Right. So again, what does Mount Sinai represent?
The law.
Which covenant? Which covenant?
The old covenant.
Oh, the old.
The old covenant. And when you're going to look at this, but back in Exodus when God was speaking to them and the smoke came from the mountaintop and they said, we don't want to hear him. We want you, Moses, to do it because it scares us. So that's what this is all talking about. And that was the old covenant. And that was that old covenant distanced people from God. They stood back. And you think about the old sacrificial system, the priest would go before, but not the people. They were distanced from God. But then you have the Mount Zion is the new covenant. And this covenant, he says, draw near with confidence, right? Draw near. So he says, don't refuse him who is speaking. You need to understand this, because if you go back to that, you're not going to escape. You're not going to receive the promise. You're not going to make it to the finish line. In 28, therefore let us be grateful. Let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. So we're going to take a good look at those verses in 2 weeks. And next week, we're going to look at discipline and Esau and plug those back into this chapter so we understand it a little more. Today was like an overview, but I love the beginning was just so powerful about the running the race and enduring and the witnesses and the examples and what we have to understand to run that race from the cross to heaven. Live by faith.
Linda, I can't help thinking about that. Some years ago, we were with you and Bill, and we did whitewater rafting, and it's a terrible paraphernalia before you ever get into the boat. And they go through the rules, and rule number 1, I was appalled to hear, was stay in the boat. And then I was hoping to, and then rule number 2 is this, rule number 3. What is rule number 1? Stay in the boat. And then rule number 4, what's rule number 1? And I often think about that. Endure. Don't get out the boat. Don't fall out. I just think it was such an amazing thing. Yeah. What's rule number 1? Stay in the boat. Right. It's amazing. I often think of it.
That was several years ago. You still remember that. Yes. You still remember that. Rule number 1, stay in the boat. Okay. Yeah. And 2 years ago, I had a group of girls out there. We went on that same whitewater raft trip. And I tell them before we ever leave the house, the rules. I said, when we get there, the guide is going to go through the rules, and I want you all to listen. Your eyes need to be on him. You need to be listening exactly what he says. I said, I've never had anybody fall out of the boat, but it's a possibility. Okay. So you listen. So then we get down there, we're on the bus, the guide is saying, we're going to tell you how to do this. And I said to the girls, eyes forward, listen. So we go through the whole thing. If you fall out, first of all, stay in the boat. If you fall out, pay attention to your guide. Listen to your guide. He will tell you which direction to swim. Listen to your guide. So stay in the boat, but if you fall out, listen to your guide. Okay. So we get in the boat, and then one of the girls says to me, what do I do if I fall out? And I said, what did he tell you to do? And so she's like, okay, listen to the guide, feet forward, get back in the boat, get back in the boat. Okay. So sure enough, we get down on the river, and she's the one that falls out. Okay. Never in like 30 girls is anybody fallen out, but she falls out because she didn't have her feet tucked in where she was supposed to have her feet tucked in. Okay. So if we're doing the right things, then you're not going to fall out of the boat. So she fell out, and then we had to rescue her and get her back in the boat. So it was, and I've used that, I just said that to her recently, stay in the boat. Just stay in the boat, because we've made that relationship to life. You're in the raft, stay in the raft. If you fall out, get back in. Okay. Life happens. 10. Yeah. Life happens, and you will fall out of the boat sometimes in life, but then you listen to your guide, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, get back in. Just get back in. So I love that you brought that up, because it is such a great illustration again of just do the right thing, you'll stay in the boat. Yeah. And my feet were tucked in so tight, I couldn't fall out. She was sitting next to me and she fell out, but then I fell backwards, but I couldn't fall out of the boat because my feet were tucked in. So now my head is dragging in the water and I can't get up. I can't get up because I don't have the core strength to get up.
Because that isn't funny. Sorry. Yeah.
It was funny, but the guide finally got to a place where he could stand up and pull me back in. And he said, yeah, we call that baptism because your head's underwater, but my foot did not come out. I never came out of the boat because I was tucked in where I was supposed to be tucked in. So just got a little wet, and he pulled me back in, and then we had to go get her and put her back in. But it was all good life experience. And we just talked about that. Like, this is life. You fall out of the boat sometimes. What do? Get back in. Yeah. And we help each other get back in. Okay.
Does anyone remember the Salvation Army song? About the lifeboat, give a shout. I'm off for a trip in the gospel ship to Canaan's happy shore.
Maybe they haven't got that one in America. Bound for Canaan's shore.
That's the one. Yeah.
Once I was lost, on the breakers tossed. There you are.
Yes.
Nancy Mowers is saying yes.
They don't know, do they?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that one. I'm way too young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you all laughing? Okay, so our message for today, stay in the boat.
Stay in the boat.
Stay in the boat and help anybody who happens to fall out. Okay? Stay in the boat.